This is Amanda Dawn Christie telling you that if you're interested in radio, AM, FM, shortwave, amateur radio, pirate broadcasting, and more, you won't want to miss the International Radio Report every Sunday morning at 10:30 on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the International Radio Report for Sunday, May the 28th, 2023 on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. My name's Sheldon. I am with Gilles, and we thank you for tuning into our show today. If you would like to reach us, radioreport@yahoo.com is our email address. We are live streaming and archived at ckut.ca, the website of CKUT Radio in Montreal. We have a Facebook group which has 914 members. We want to welcome 3 new members this week, Jeremy, Graham, and Jean-Francois. We thank you for joining. You can find us on Facebook. Just search for International Radio Report. Lots of great information there, including the stories that we cover on the show and stories that don't make it to the program within our 30-minute time limit each week. So you can check us out there. And you can also post comments and post your own stories there as well that you find. We always appreciate your input. And if you'd like to listen to the show again or catch it at a time that is convenient for you, we recommend you go to our YouTube channel. It is also called International Radio Report, and you can subscribe there. We have 835 subscribers, and you can listen to the most current show and go back and listen to some of the older shows on there as well. So we are continuing this week with coverage of the ongoing story of the future of AM radio inside cars. And we have 3 different stories to tell you about today on that particular item.
So I think some people are feeling the heat here with all the different actions being taken to make sure AM radio lives on in cars. Ford reverses course. Will keep AM radio in electric vehicles. This is Reuters News by David Shepardson via Kevin Carey, Bloomfield, New York. Ford Motor Company will not remove AM broadcast radio as a feature in new vehicles after lawmakers introduced legislation to require them, the company chief's executive said Tuesday. Ford CEO Jim Farley said on Twitter Ford will include it on all 2024 Ford vehicles and for existing Ford EVs. Without AM broadcast capability, we'll offer a software update. Thanks to our product development and manufacturing teams for their quick response to make this change for our customers. Last week, a group of bipartisan U.S. lawmakers introduced legislation to bar automakers from eliminating AM broadcast radio in their new vehicles, citing safety concerns about emergency alerts. Senator Ed Markey, one of the sponsors of the bill, said last week at least 8 automakers had opted to remove AM broadcast radio from their electric vehicles, including Tesla, BMW, Ford, Volkswagen. Markey on Tuesday praised Ford for tuning into the concerns of millions of listeners, thousands of broadcasters, and countless emergency management officials who have called for automakers to keep AM radio in their vehicles. The bill would direct the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to issue regulations to mandate AM radio in new vehicles without additional charge. Car makers shouldn't tune out AM radio in new vehicles or put it behind a costly digital paywall, Markey said. Lawmakers said losing AM radio undermines a federal system for delivering key public safety information to the public. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation, a trade group representing major automakers, said mandating AM radios in all vehicles is unnecessary. Congress has never mandated radio features in vehicles ever before. Automakers pointed to an existing system that distributes warnings across AM, FM, internet-based or satellite radio, and over cellular networks. This is simply a bill to prop up and give preference to a particular technology that's now competing with other communications options and adapting to changing listenership, automaker groups said. It's interesting because one of the first things that stood out when I was reading this is how AM radio is part of the radio already. They just have to push a firmware update to your radio to turn it on. That is kind of interesting. To take the time to actually block it when it's available, I don't understand. It's really, you don't want it because you'll have to shield your cars more before it actually works well, probably. So that's the first interesting issue here. I guess, hopefully other companies will actually follow because this is big news and this is something that needs to be preserved. Once again, they have all these technologies they talk about with like cell phones and FM radio and so on. Yes, of course, if you live in a big city or somewhere where the coverage of all of that is good, yeah, I get it. But I think they don't understand that in an emergency, sir, like a hurricane or in places actually in the United States that are far from everywhere, AM radio is the only thing that goes through.
Yeah, it is interesting that it reminds me of, the radios in cell phones that are not activated. It's, we probably a lot of people didn't realize that the AM was going to be in these radios, but they just weren't going to activate it. Why? Like you said, probably they figured if we activate it and people are going to start hearing noise and they're going to start complaining and, we're going to have to deal with all of that. So they probably just said, if you don't, what you don't know won't hurt you. Yeah. So let's just let them figure it out. If they ask for it, okay, we can maybe do something, but otherwise, we'll just let it go. As you said, Ford's the first to act on this. In the surveys that we read about a couple weeks ago, I think Ford owners, they were saying, were some of the people that were found to be using AM radio a lot. So maybe they realized, hey, these people are buying our vehicles. Maybe we better give them what they want, or they may be going somewhere else. So that's interesting that they reacted that quickly. I mean, the commission hasn't really done anything major yet, and we have a follow-up story on that, actually. It comes from a press release. Energy and Commerce Committee bipartisan leaders announced plans for a hearing on AM radio, and this was issued on May the 23rd. The Energy and Commerce Committee Chair, Cathy McMorris Rogers, Ranking Member Frank Pallone Jr., Communications and Technology Subcommittee Chair Bob Latta, and Subcommittee Ranking Member Doris Matsui today announced plans to hold a committee hearing in early June on the importance of AM radio installation in new cars. Energy and Commerce Committee Chair Cathy McMorris Rogers said, quote, communities across the country rely on AM radio service for local news, weather reports, and other critical information. It is also a key tool for our nation's emergency communications infrastructure, especially when other communication services are not available. I look forward to this timely discussion on the many benefits of AM radio as a source of information and the importance of ensuring it continues to be available in new vehicle models. I don't think they would have been doing this unless they really got bombarded by people. There's a lot of people out there saying, AM radio, nobody listens to it. It's not important. It's too much noise. Why bother? There's nothing on it to listen to. Who cares? Obviously, a lot of people must have cared for them to act this quickly, now to do hearings on it, to discuss it even further. Ford making their quick decision to go ahead with the radios. Something obviously triggered all of this to happen so quickly.
I was thinking about all of these powerhouse stations that are clear channel and that make great distances. One comes to mind quickly here in the Montreal area is the 880 WCBS out in New York. Say it all the time when I listen to that station. I kind of just stay there for 15, 20 minutes. It's kind of interesting. You want to listen to what they have to say. And I believe that shows that there's definitely probably a lot more listeners to AM than maybe they thought there was. I know that most stations today, even WCBS out of New York, have an FM outlet, but it doesn't reach as far as WCBS AM signal that's just dominating all of the Northeast. So, in a blizzard and all of that. So A lot of the viewers of my YouTube channel have told me that they hear AM radio, Save AM radio ads everywhere right now. So I guess it's maybe kind of lighting up a little bit the spirit of AM, and people are just saying, you know what, yeah, it is maybe important when something bad happens. And so they got so much feedback that they just have to act and do something about it.
Not everybody's happy about this, though, and our next story is the first that we've seen really come out on the opposite side of the coin.
Yeah, AM mandates first big detractor steps up to bat, and this is via Radio Inc. Mandating AM radio in new cars would be like mandating CD or 8-track cassette players, says the first major organization to speak out against the AM for Every Vehicle Act. This criticism of the act, introduced to Congress last week by a bipartisan group of sponsors led by Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Ed Markey, is coming from a source near to many broadcasters, the Consumer Technology Association. The CTA is best known for the annual Consumers Electronics Show in Las Vegas, which many radio executives attend. In a blog post by CTA staff, the group argued that mandating AM radio in all new cars is an idea that would be critically examined as it contradicts the principles of a free market economy. They said while the majority of cars will have AM radios for the foreseeable future, innovation and consumer choice, not the heavy hand of the government, should determine the makeup of car entertainment systems. CTA also said requiring AM radio installation in new cars would burden automakers with increased costs, leading to higher prices for consumers. They claimed focus on AM could somehow impede innovation in other areas of vehicle development, including safety features and fuel efficiency advancements. The association finally dismissed the public safety concerns around AM's removal because other technology should step up to replace AM. Some make the argument that AM radio is necessary for emergency broadcasts, but in such cases, FM radio, internet streaming services, better rural broadband, and text alerts should be able to make up for any loss of AM radio access. I have one thing to say to these people that are saying that. I hope you get lost in a hurricane sometime.
Yeah, go talk to some people in Florida for a while back when they were cut off from just about everything. It's happened in the maritime provinces here in Canada where everything basically was shut down. People couldn't even get money out of their bank accounts at one point, that did it online and whatever. We have so many systems that are vulnerable to so many things. And we kind of take them for granted that they're always going to be there, they're always going to work, and, you won't have to worry. Well, there's been enough proof of that not being the case.
You don't even need to have a real big major hurricane for that to happen. We had something that was pretty big, but, was temporary here and about, a month ago, a little more than a month ago, where the quick ice storm just, broke the power everywhere. And you know what? My cell phone at times just didn't work because the cell towers were bombarded with people trying to get data and get calls through, which tells you that, if there's an emergency and that doesn't work, where exactly will I get my emergency?
Yeah, there's areas, not just hurricanes, but the Tornado Alley in the United States where things come and happen so quickly. Hurricanes, you usually have some kind of advance notice that something's coming. You get these hurricanes, and if these tornadoes, I should say, if you don't have, quick weather alerts and things like that, they're on top of you before you know it. So I'd want to have every type of information available out there, regardless of, what it is, because some might work, some might not. So, if you have something that's been around since Marconi days that still works the same way, why not just leave it in its place and let it keep doing its job? It's, it makes a whole lot of sense. This group, I'm not sure where they're coming from. They seem to be more techie type people. And it's this is old stuff and, we don't want to be bothered with this. So, they may be of a generation where, oh yeah, we have all these things at work. What is this AM stuff? Why do we need that? So
I think there's also in there, that group is really selling all sorts of technologies. They just don't want to have too much competition around. So they want to sell you whatever technology they have and tell you that it's, foolproof and that through that you will always get emergencies. Yeah, well, maybe not.
I wonder, how many people even know that so many of these services that they use are really radio based anyways.
Yeah.
It's just another type of radio. The technology that they're using, it just doesn't look the same as, a voice coming out of a box with knobs on it.
So what's happening with our sun, which is also a celestial body that could create all sorts of problems with communications? So our sun this week was still quite active. Lots of coronal mass ejections with M-class, mostly M-class flares that happened. And there was even a minor geomagnetic storm, G1 class, that happened. But conditions were, up and down, but not too bad and not too disturbed throughout the week, which will probably be what's going to continue on. There's a lot of sunspot groups that are capable of major flares right now. So that is something to definitely look at throughout the week, because that means conditions can change from hour to hour and even minute to minute. There's actually a lot of posts this week about people wondering why, I get or don't get stations. And one of the things that I mentioned in the group was, remember that with high solar activity, with the solar cycle that we're going through right now, conditions can literally change from hour to hour. In an hour, you'll listen to tons of signals, and the next hour it could be dead on the bands for minutes to hours. So it's changing conditions that are really affecting us a lot. So you hear something one day, you might not hear it the next day. But sunspot number 121, the solar flux 164, and there's no coronal holes to mess up even more the conditions of HF propagation this week. So if you want to know how the bands are, well, the best thing to do is just to turn on a radio and listen.
I'm Brian Penny of Brewster, Massachusetts. You're tuned to the International Radio Report. 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Our next story takes you to Japan, and this is via Takahito Akabayashi, and he submitted this to Glenn Hauser's World of Radio. Only one AM station in the Japanese Kanto area has decided to stop AM broadcasting as of February 2024. According to the May 21st issue of Tokyo Shimbun, only one AM station in Kanto area has decided to stop AM, as I said, February 2024. The Japanese Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications permits AM commercial radio stations to stop AM on a trial basis for a maximum of 2 years from February 2024, if they request to do so by November 2023, when all the AM radio stations renew licenses in Japan. As for the Kanto area, Tokyo and the surrounding 6 prefectures, only one AM station out of 6 has decided to stop their AM broadcast. So they list a whole bunch of the different stations and some of the reasons why they're not going to shut down. Tokyo Radio Nippon, for example, they will not stop because they have all of their different areas that they cover, parts of different stations that they have, I should say. Each station has only one AM transmitter site, and FM from Tokyo Sky Tree cannot cover the northern Kanto areas. So if they shut down the AM, a lot of people are going to lose coverage because the FM just doesn't have the range that the AM transmitter does. In Kanagawa, Radio Nippon, they are considering to not stop AM because most of their listeners are old-aged people who actually prefer to listen to AM radio. So there's another factor that we haven't really talked about. That AM does go back in history with people, and if that's what they're familiar with, that's what they're going to listen to. Tochigi is another area. They haven't decided yet what they're going to do. Their cause for concern is the low penetration of the FM radios receivable above 90 megahertz. Old Japanese FM radios only cover 76 to 90 megahertz. So that's really odd. I wasn't aware that was happening, but those radios must go back a long way. And Ibaragi, they have decided actually to stop AM broadcast because they say their 100 watt FM transmitter located at the top of Mount Hokyo at 461 meters can cover a much wider area than AM does. That's debatable. I guess depends on the power, maybe. It says that their 88.1 station can be received by old FM radios that do cover 76 to 90 megahertz. So they feel by using the powered FM that they have, that they'd be able to reach everybody, even those people that have the older radios. So at least they're taking a look at it before they jump on the bandwagon and say, okay, we're just going to pull a plug and see what happens. I guess there'll be that test period. They have, as we said, they have to request to try it out. They can start the trial basis for a maximum of 2 years. So they'll have to follow that closely, see how people react to it. Do they lose listeners? Do they get complaints? What have you? So things happening with AM in Japan, but from the broadcasting side of it, not from the radio side of it. Interesting, though, I'd not heard of radios that only covered 76 to 90 megahertz FM.
No, I've never heard of that either. I have the ones, like even now, a lot of the radios sold have that expanded FM up to 76. But
right.
I didn't know that there were radios that didn't go higher than 90 megahertz.
I guess maybe that goes back to opening up of the FM band. Maybe, they started stations putting them in that range and, only made the radios to cover that range. Anyways, we'll keep an eye out on that. Thanks to Takahito for passing that story along.
It's kind of interesting thinking that, I would think of Japan as a pretty advanced technological population with everything they have and all the major tech electronic companies over the years that were there. So it's interesting to see that many of them still want to keep their AM alive. So we have a special event station coming up for the Indy 500. Whiskey 9 India Mike Sierra. And this is by Brian D. Smith. Whiskey 9 India November Delta. Like the race cars that made Indy famous, your opportunity for another W9 IMS QSL card is coming around again. This time it's the venerable Indianapolis 500 that will take center stage through 11:59 p.m. Eastern, Sunday, May the 28th. So that's 03:59 UTC, Monday, May 29th. So tips on finding W9 IMS, you can look at the DX Summit website for spots listing the current frequency and frequencies of W9 IMS. Go to the Whiskey 9 India Mike Sierra webpage, which is w9ims.org, and look for the heading 2023 operating schedule. You can click on the Indianapolis 500 link, which opens into a week-long schedule of individual operators and their reserved time slots. Although operators often get on the air at unscheduled times, your odds of bagging the station improve significantly during the hours with a listed operator. Prime operating time on weeknights is 6 to 10 p.m. Indy time, that's 22 to 02 UTC. That's also your most likely shot at finding W9 IMS activate on two bands, generally 20 and 40 meters. Preferred frequencies are 14245 and 7245, but it's possible that the station will move to other bands if propagation warrants. Remember that the published schedule could be shortened by adverse circumstances such as noisy band conditions, local thunderstorms, or lack of calling stations. Don't wait till the final hours to look for Whiskey 9, India, Mike Sierra. Here, what we see also on the frequencies they have mentioned is SSB voice operators. So this is definitely an interesting station. We hear it pretty much every year. I don't know how many years in a row I've, by accident sometimes, just stumbled upon the special event station for the Indy 500. So definitely something interesting to listen to.
Yeah, those operators actually run the station for a couple other races that go on during the year as well. Yeah. And I think this is the third in a set of 3 QSL cards that they've had for the different operations. So if you were one of the hams that maybe contacted the first 2, I think this is the final one with the big race, the Indy 500. You can try and listen to the station as well if you're a shortwave listener, and I'm sure they will respond with a QSL card for you. They're very flashy QSL cards. I've seen them in the past, and they're a pretty nice addition to your QSL collection.
Looking at the W9 IMS link, I see that they even have a certificate if you work all 3 big events that they have through the year. So there was a May 7 to 13 Grand Prix operator schedule. There's this one, the Indy 500, and there's going to be one in August with the NASCAR 200. And they say you work all 3, you get a special certificate. So this is kind of interesting. So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
Yeah, we have a few things coming up for the weekend, which will be running next weekend. We have first from the Penn Ohio DX Society. It's the Penn Ohio DX Society's 070 Club 3-day weekend contest. 000 Zulu June 2nd to 2359 Zulu June the 4th. And the purpose is to work as many stations as possible using PSK 31 mode during that 3-day weekend. The bands are 160 through 6 meters. And as we said, the mode is PSK 31 only.
There's the 1010 International Open Season PSK Contest. 000 Zulu June 3rd to 2359 Zulu June 4th. Organized by 1010 International. The purpose is to stimulate PSK activity on the 10-meter band. So the mode is BPSK 31. All contacts must be two-way BPSK 31. And the band, 10 meters.
There is the TISA Cup CW contest, 0200 to 1459 Zulu, June the 3rd. It's organized by the Debrecen University Amateur Radio Club of Hungary. The bands are 160 through 10 meters, but it is CW only.
There's the Kentucky Cuso Party, 1300 Zulu June 3rd to 01 Zulu June 4th, organized by the Kentucky Contest Group. The modes, CW, SSB, and the digital mode that is allowed is RTTY, radio teletype, only. The bands 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, 6, and 2 meters.
2 meters. I wonder how much RTTY there is on.
I've never heard RTTY on 2 meters.
Anyways, that's something you might want to check out. Obviously, simplex. I don't think they'd allow repeater use.
No.
But anyways, that's interesting. I haven't heard of that either. And finally, we have the ARRL's International Digital Contest, 1800 Zulu June 3rd to 2359 Zulu June the 4th. That's organized by the ARRL, that's the American Radio Relay League. And it is all digital modes, covering 160 all the way through 6-meter bands.
And we are out of time.
All right. Lots of information for you today. If you run into interesting stories, please pass them along to us, radioreport@yahoo.com, or post them up on our Facebook page, International Radio Report. We'd be happy to entertain those as well.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
RAE, Argentina.
RAE, Argentina.